A new landmark bill decriminalizing marijuana is one step closer to becoming law, as it is now heading to the Senate after passing on a mostly partisan vote in the House on Friday. It does, though, face an uncertain fate in the divided Senate, but Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says it will come up for a vote. The Washington Post notes that in addition to eliminating criminal penalties for the manufacture, distribution, or possession of marijuana, the MORE Act would provide for regulation and taxation of legal cannabis sales. That could be an incentive for some. It also would provide for the expungement, and this is really key, the expungement of federal marijuana convictions dating back to 1971. Keeda Haynes fits into that last category, and she joins me now. She served 7 years in federal prison for a drug conviction, only to later run for Congress, as documented in her book, Bending the Arc, My Journey from Prison to Politics. Keeda, thanks for being with us. I got into this story yesterday by noting that my father-in-law served time in jail for selling marijuana. It was quite a bit. It was $10 million worth, so a little different, obviously, than your situation. But it would provide for the expungement of criminal records. And I do want to talk to you about that, because that, to me, seems like the key portion of this bill that will impact so many lives out there. What does it mean to have this on your record?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And, myself, as well as others who have these marijuana convictions, we face so many hurdles when it comes to the reentry process. People have problems getting jobs. People have problems getting housing. And for myself, when I came out of prison with this marijuana conviction, I chose to become a lawyer. And so I had to go through the character and fitness examination. I wasn't able to be sworn in with the rest of my classmates and just all of those things. So there's a number of collateral consequences that we face just with having a marijuana conviction on our record.
So say this bill does come into law. What will it mean for you personally?
For me personally, it will mean exactly what you talked about, with being able to have this expunged off of my record. The studies showed that, marijuana arrests account for over half of the drug arrests in this country. And there's a significant racial bias there when it comes to who is arrested and who is convicted when it comes to Black and white, individuals, when the usage is just the same. And so for myself, as well as other individuals with marijuana convictions, it will start to repair the harm that we have experienced because of this fictitious war on drugs and mass incarceration, which is rooted in systemic racism.
Yeah, and dating back to 1971, a lot of these arrests are for very small amounts. I mean, I talked about my father-in-law, that was $10 million worth. It was a ton. It was many tons, in fact. But a lot of these arrests, especially for Black and brown people, as you're pointing out, are for, enough for a joint. I mean, it's not much at all.
Right. And so that's important, too, is that the fact that it will eliminate the penalties, for possession of marijuana. And so that right there is great, too, because like you said, sometimes there's small amounts. But even going further than that, eliminating the penalties for the distribution and the manufacturing of marijuana, because we have so many states right now who actually have decriminalized marijuana. And then when you look at the research that says that about 68% of Americans, they actually think that marijuana should be legal in this country. And so it should be legal, regardless of the amount. And so that's where we're moving, and that's where the states are moving. And so the federal government also needs to move along that line, too.
How do you feel about the incentive for some lawmakers who might be getting lobbied from their states or industries in their states that, you can raise taxes with this, or you can raise money through taxes with this?
I mean, I think that probably is an incentive for some lawmakers, is the fact that it can be regulated and that it can be taxed and that money can be made off of it. And so I hope that as they are talking about this in the Senate, I hope that is something that they are bringing up to some of the Republicans who may not be quite on board with this yet. And so just to let them know that these are some of the benefits that would, come from actually legalizing marijuana.
I know you had your own political run. I'm sure you've seen Gary Chambers down there in Louisiana, who's running against John Kennedy for U.S. Senate. He was, in his first campaign ad, smoking a blunt, and he was trying to make the point that there's nothing wrong with it, and make the very points that you've been making, which is that the stigma needs to be taken away, but also the criminalization, because it does so much affect the Black and brown community.
Yes, absolutely. And when I did run for Congress, that was one of my key issues was to make sure that legislation was introduced, like the MORE Act, so that we could decriminalize marijuana because of my personal experience, but also because of what I saw when I was working as a public defender. That again, as I mentioned, Black and brown and individuals from low-income communities were the ones that were being charged with marijuana offenses.
Keeda Haynes, thank you so much for joining us. Again, your book for everyone out there is Bending the Arc, My Journey from Prison to Politics. I appreciate your time. She's saying thank you. The audio just got cut off, though. Thank you, Keeda. And William Shakespeare.